The amount of a scene that is in focus is known as the depth of field, which makes sense given that the word depth is in the name. The effect is probably easiest to observe if you use a small light source like a Christmas light or a candle. As you can imagine, the light shoots off in every direction and some of that light enters the camera lens. Now, as you can imagine, the inside of our lens doesn't look quite like this. There's actually a lot more lenses that are oddly shaped and precisely shaped. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to use a simple lens that looks like a magnifying lens. If we focus the camera on a Christmas light, the light will focus perfectly on the camera sensor in the back here. Now, I have magnified this light to a ridiculous extent, and at this magnification level, nothing looks really totally crisp, but I want you to note the size and clarity of this little spot of light right here. Let's go back to the diagram. I've removed some of those lines to make this example even simpler. With the camera focused on an object at this distance, a Christmas light that is further away will actually focus at a point somewhere behind the sensor. So the light that actually hits the sensor is out of focus and it's actually kind of a big blob. Going back to the Christmas light picture, as the lights get further away, you can see that that tiny little spot of light becomes a bigger and bigger blob. In short, they're out of focus. Back to the diagram. If you have several sources of light that are close to each other, but they're out of focus, the resulting blobs on the sensor overlap. I've chosen a different picture to demonstrate this. Now, in this picture, my sun is in focus, and the tree in the background is not. You can see that the sunlight coming through the gaps in the leaves create tiny little spots of light. But because they're out of focus and they're beyond the focus distance, they actually come through as little disks. And you can also see how they overlap each other. Not only are the bright spots overlapping, but every spot on the tree is overlapping, and it becomes almost unrecognizable. For a similar reason, the same thing happens to objects that are closer than the focal distance. In this case, the focus point is not behind, but in front of the sensor, and it flips upside down and creates a similar size blob. Let's look at another Christmas tree picture. Here, the tiny light and the big red ornament are both apparently in focus. Here's the Christmas tree light, and here is the ornament. Now, in reality, the front and back of this ornament are actually slightly out of focus, but not so much that you would notice. Now, that's not true for the branches that are up close and far away. They are obviously out of focus. The brief distance where objects appear to be in focus is called the depth of field.